And today we're going to run through live events, how to set them up, what to expect when you're running one, and all the good bits and resources that come with live events. So first thing I'm just going to start off with is there's kind of three main personas you get with live events. You get attendees who are like yourselves today, just viewing the session. It's a lot like a broadcast rather than an actual Teams meeting where you have back and forth chats. You then have the producer who sets up the meeting, who can pull in slides and different presenters at different times. They're the main one controlling the live event. So like Struan today. And you then get a presenter. So this might be someone who could just be joining the event to share some slides or to share their topics and thoughts. So they're the kind of personas that we're going to be focusing on today. So the first thing we're going to do is run through actually just setting up a live event for the first time. I'm going to run through slides today just because we've got a little half an hour slot. And it's actually notoriously hard to demo live events as a training remotely, because to be a producer of a live event, you need to have access to the Microsoft Teams desktop app. So that just is a caveat for anyone who's going to be a producer. But what I'll do is I'll share the slide deck at the end, and on these slides there's actual little videos that you can run through. So if you forget what we cover today, you can play these videos back. So for the setting up for a live event, I'm just jumping into my demo tenant. And you need to be on Teams calendar. So I know a few forces have rolled out basics, but you might not have full calendar access because your Exchange Online might not be migrated yet. So anyone that you want to set up a live event would need access just to calendar left-hand side of your Microsoft Teams instance. You then need to come up here on the right-hand corner where it says New Meeting and select Live Event. There we go. And you'll get a page that looks like this. So this is where you can put the title of your live event. So I'm going to put Teams training in here. You can invite presenters that you might want to join you. So I'm just going to put a couple of internal people that I want to present with me. You can invite external guests to present as well. This is how I'm presenting on the police ICT tenant. So you can have them in also as a presenter. You can then select a location. So if you do have a physical building where this presentation will be happening, you can pop that in there. As most of us are at home at the minute, I'm going to leave that blank for today. And you can put some details about the live event. So I'll just put a couple example. Let's learn how to set up a team. When you're happy, you can come to next. And this will give you a few permissions that you need to set up. So firstly, you need to decide who your event is going to go to. Is it a certain group or just certain specific people within your force who will need to watch this event? Is it an event that you're happy to go org-wide? So, anyone could potentially click to log in to view this event. They do need to sign in with their Office 365 account. So if you've not got everyone on Office 365 yet, what you might want to do is to do a public event. But this does mean that anyone with the link could potentially join your event. So it's great if you're trying to do a community briefing or do some training and involve, say, a local county council. There's no sign-in required and you can join anonymously. So just be aware there's kind of 3 different permissions that you can set up on the ability to join a live event. The next option that you select is how you're going to produce your live event. And there's 2 options here. There's Teams or produce your live event via an external app or device. So if you're just kind of doing a bog standard live event, you just want people joining from their laptops at home. They're just going to be sharing PowerPoint slides, maybe videos embedded in those slides and just talking over the top of it. You'll need to use Teams, which is what we're going to cover today. However, if you've got a more professional setup, so if you've got proper TV equipment, proper sound equipment, you'll need an external app to produce this event. And you'll need something called an encoder to do this. So that's a separate license. It's not a Microsoft license. They're not that expensive. You'd only need one for the person who is actually producing the live event. but that is just something extra you need if you want that really professional setup, or if you want to push this live event to a separate app. So if any of you watched the Lords doing their briefings in the House of Commons on Teams, they kind of had a whole broadcasting network and an encoder to do that. So in Teams option that we're going to cover today, you get a few different settings that you can set up. So whether you want the recording to be available to attendees at the end, so this will mean that they will just have a link, so the link that they click to join the event, after the event, post-event, it will just lead to a recording of that live event. You can turn this off if you don't want them to have it afterwards. The next option you get is turning on captions. So this means that you can have captions running along the bottom of your live event. So from an accessibility and inclusivity point of view, it's always great to at least have English on as a language, but you can have up to 6 different languages. So if people are joining, they can choose potentially one of 6 languages to view the session in. And there is a Welsh option in here. So if any of the Welsh police forces have joined, it means you do have the option to give that dual language captioning on there. So I'll just select Welsh for this event, as well as English. And then your final options is whether you want to have an attendee engagement report. So this will just give you a report if it's an internal event. It'll tell you who's signed in, what questions they asked on Q&A, those kinds of things. And you do have a Q&A option. So that's just having the Q&A chat bar down the side like we have in this live event, whether you want that to be on or off. So when you're happy with all your selections, you just need to come and select schedule. And this will give you an invite that's for your producers that goes in the Teams diary. So anyone that I put as a producer or a presenter at the start would get this in their diary. However, for attendees, what you need to do is to select Get Attendee Link. It's literally just a URL link. And what I really recommend doing for your event is going to the same space of what it is in the calendar, perhaps in your Outlook, and putting a title such as join. Let's just put join Teams training here. You could link it to a team potentially, but you just need to copy and paste that attendee link so people can click this to join the right view of the meeting. There we go. So that's everything around setting up your meeting. We're now going to run into actually once you get into the meeting as a presenter. So I'm just going to flick to my slideshow here because, as I mentioned, it is notoriously difficult to demo how to use live events from an instance itself, as you're normally joining the desktop app to present the live event. So if we're a producer joining the live event, what we do is we'll come to our calendar. Just as you do when joining a Teams meeting, you can click join here to open the calendar view. And you reach a page which looks something similar to this, well, exactly the same as this. So just a few things I want to point out to you. So in the top left-hand corner, you get an area that shows you how many attendees you have joining your meeting at that certain point in time. And until you click go live, this will always be in yellow and say pre-live. So anything you put on screen, if it's highlighted in yellow, it means you're not live yet. When it goes to live, it'll be highlighted in red. In this top right-hand corner here, this is your toolbar. So you've got settings on analytics. It's where you can monitor Q&A. You can put different notes for internal presenters. Internal presenters and producers can chat, and you can just view which presenters and producers you have online, as well as settings for what mic and what audio you're going to be using. In the center here, you've got 2 screens. So one is a queue screen. So this one you can load up what you're going to present. Is it a desktop view? Is it a screen view? Is it just someone with their camera on? This is what you can queue up here. And there's 2 different options. So one is presenting your whole screen, and this little option with the little sidebar just allows you to show your video as well as the screen in the live event. On this right hand corner, we've got a share button. So this is what you click to enable sharing your documents or your screen. And there is a mute all option. So if your presenters or producers are chatting before you go live, this allows you to mute everyone as soon as you click the start button. So just focusing on this top right hand corner, the first option you've got is health and performance. So this will just show you your network and your bandwidth. Really important to check on, especially if you're doing a very large event to lots of people. It'll show you around your devices and just any policies that you have set up from Stream on sharing and bitrate limits. Second one next to that, we're just going to come back to Q&A at the end because it's a bit more of a meaty one. You've got meeting notes. So this is where you can put some key reminders for people. If you've got kind of 5, 6 presenters coming on, you might just want to put the order in which you want people to appear. Might just be the agenda for the meeting. And this is just internal to presenters and producers. You do have a chat. So again, this is where if you're a producer, you can line up and say, Alex, you're coming next. Megan, you're on after that. Just do a quick check. Everyone can hear everything, making sure that everyone's on mute, those kinds of things. And again, this doesn't go to any attendees. It's just between presenters and producers. Last option is people. So again, this will just show you when producers and presenters have joined. So you'll be able to see if you're waiting on anyone to join before the live event starts. And finally is your device settings. You can choose whether you're using your PC mic and speakers, if you're using a headset like I'm using today, and if you're doing a camera view, which camera you're using. Is it a connected webcam or is it just the one from your laptop? Now, if you scroll down on this settings view, there are a couple of more settings that appear. So one is whether you want to have attendee live captions on. So you do set that up in the initial invite, but it's just double checking that you want them to appear for people. You can actually have live captions appear for yourself. I quite often turn this off as I find it a bit of a distraction when I'm presenting. But if one of your presenter has any accessibility needs, if they've got hearing impairments, it can be really useful to have their live captions switched on. So we've got to our producer view. We've walked a little bit around just what all the buttons and all the screens do as the producer sees. We're now going to look at actually starting the live event. So the first thing I really recommend is ensuring that you already have the PowerPoint open that you want to use in the live event. If possible, if you've got multiple presenters, if they can, you can create a kind of master deck that the producer runs. It just makes it a little bit easier than perhaps relying on each presenter to go and share their own screen. You're just working off one deck and changing who's speaking on it. So really recommend you have your kind of master PowerPoint open first and your video switched on if you're using it, and then go and click share in the bottom right hand corner. You'll then get an option of everything you wish to share. This works really similarly to a Teams meeting. You can choose an app such as a OneNote or a web browser, or you can choose a PowerPoint that you might have open on your desktop. What happens then is it actually opens your PowerPoint and it'll highlight it in a red box to say this is the one that you're going live. But at this point, you're probably not ready just to click live and start the event. So all we need to do to jump back into that producer screen is to just click on this box that appears in the bottom right hand corner to jump back into that view we were in a second ago. It'll still make sure your PowerPoint's highlighted in the background, but it just means you can check a few more things before you actually go to start your event. And notice on this little box, it says pre in yellow. So I'm confident that my event's not gone live yet. I'm just getting ready and setting things up. So if you click on that black box, as I mentioned, it takes you back to this screen. So I can now see that I'm speaking. I've got my content ready to go and lined up. And by clicking send live, it's actually quite a confusing button. It doesn't actually send it live, but what it does is it pushes your content into that right hand pane. So anything that goes into that right hand pane is, as soon as you click start, what your attendees are going to see. So I've just clicked send live here and I've got my pane replicated on the right hand side. So once I'm happy with everything, I could then click start to actually kick off the live event. Now, when you do click start, you get this warning. So once you actually click start, it sets your live event off. You can't stop and restart it. So be really ready and prepared. Make sure everyone's on before you click that start option. And there is a bit of a time limit on events. So you can only have a live event that lasts from 16 hours. And the attendees on the back end, you do get about a 10-second delay, can be up to 20 seconds on what I'm speaking to what you're seeing. So when you're happy with that, you can click continue. You'll then notice that your pre-live notification has switched to live. The box on the right-hand side showing your PowerPoint presentation has switched to red. And you'll notice instead of saying start, this now says end. So if you click that end button, that will end your live event. You can't go back and restart it. Now I did show you another option. So what you can do is be sharing your screen. If you select this option as well, it will also send your camera content live. So if you still want to get some personalization by having someone in camera view on the right hand side, you can do that just by selecting this second option, screen option under the Q screen. Also, just to say before we go on to the presenter experience, your other presenters and producers will be lined up along the bottom here. To switch between them in the live event, you simply just need to click on the other producer. They can come to the side here and click share and then choose to share their screen, just their video. It's super easy just to flick between different presenters. So we were looking at a producer view there where you get all the different actions around the meeting that's happening. For a presenter experience, because it might just be someone to join to run through some slides or to just do a talk, they don't have that full editing capability that a producer has. So you can go and join your event as usual. You'll just come to the calendar invite, click to open it, and that will enter you into the event. The only difference is rather than having that view where I've got everyone on screen, the only difference that I'll have is that it'll look a lot more just like running a Teams meeting, and I can come and join and share my screen. And you'll still get these options like you have when you're joining a Teams meeting at a start to blur your background, turn your mic on and off, and check your settings. So this would be a presenter's view. You can see, I can see whatever's being shared by someone at the minute. It would just be blank like your pre-attendee view before that happens. And I can see all the other presenters running along the bottom. You just get that toolbar along the bottom like you do in any other Teams meeting. So chat for that internal conversation between presenters. You can still see Q&A by clicking on the bar with the questions in. And you can always tell you're live by coming here and again looking for the red box. So you just need to click the little square with the arrow in to actually share your desktop screen. And again, this will just show you all the different apps that you have open on your desktop as a presenter, and you can choose the PowerPoint slide that you want to share. And again, you'll always have that meeting pop up in the bottom right-hand corner. So if you want to jump back into that view we just saw, you can just click on that to bring that back open. So just to highlight, very similar to running a normal Teams meeting, being a presenter on a live event, look out for this bottom bar, and especially for this box with the square and the arrow in to actually share your content. And until you're live, this will be yellow and be pre-live. So just watch out that it says live there. And it also gives you a reminder if your mic's on and off too. So next, we're just going to take a deeper look into the question and answer option in live events. So I'm just coming to this right-hand side in the producer view and selecting on the box that has a comment box with a question mark in. So what you'll see here when you first set up is it'll say new, there's no questions. You'll get a published option and a dismiss question option. And the first thing you need to do to make the Q&A live is just to make sure that this switch is flicked into open. Now you see you have no questions here, but because you're the producer, you can come to the bottom and actually click to make an announcement. So it might be, we're going to kick off in 5 minutes, everyone. Do put your questions in here. Just anything that you want to make sure anyone who's joined the live event can see. So as I can see, I've just posted a question here that says, please send your questions through to here. I'm now looking at what an attendee sees. So I can see the PowerPoint presentation that the producer is showing. But rather than saying make an announcement, it now says ask a question for me at the bottom. I can tell which the producer has said, as it said moderator, so I can give it a thumbs up to show I've read it or seen it. And you'll notice I've got slightly different options at the top here. So I can see all questions that have been posted by features. My questions would show all the questions that you specifically asked, and you can then filter down into most recent. So this is if it was a very large live event, you might want to use this filter. You also do have the options for settings right at the top where you can see the cog. So this is just where you can check where your audio is coming out from for the live event. So now I'm going to go ask a question to the producers as my attendee. So I'm just going to come to the bottom. It automatically flicks you to my questions. I've joined with my name, but you can join anonymously if it is if you've chosen to post it anonymously. You can see at the bottom here, you can tick this box. And I've just asked a question about finding more resources on Teams. As soon as I click send, the producer will get my question through. It'll appear in new. So I can see the question Alex R has asked come through. What I can do then is choose whether I want to publish it so everyone on the live event can see the question. What I might want to do is just keep these questions and write replies after the live event, so people just get a personal response back rather than seeing every response that comes back. And you will notice that as well as a thumbs up, there is a dustbin option. So if it is an inappropriate question, you can dismiss it. So it doesn't have to appear on the live feed, or you don't have to answer that question if you don't think it's appropriate. So I can see here now, as a producer, I've just had an anonymous question submitted. So just to show you the difference, it says anonymous rather than the person's name. And this is where you can choose to dismiss it or to publish it. So if I just reply underneath, this is where my responses are seen. So these are ones that I've republished back for the attendees. And just to show you a little summary of the attendee view. So this is launching in the web browser. I'll just skip along a little bit for timings. And this is the image that you're kind of seeing now. You've got your Q&A bar to the side. You've got your presentation in the middle. And if anyone's turned to have the camera on, you can see that just to the right-hand side there. Just get to the end just to show you Q&A coming through. But you should be used to that process from joining these calls. So after an event, what you can get as a producer is these options. So if you choose to have Q&A on, you can download these questions and answers to collate them. At the start, if you did choose to turn on the attendee engagement report, again, this will just show you if people have answered questions, whether it was anonymous questions, or if you've logged in and chose to use your name, who asked them, and who joined your meeting. Again, if you do sign in, it'll show you your attendees. Recording for attendees, so this will be that link that you can share. So internally it'll be stored in Stream. You can disable this if you don't want to send it out. For those externally, they'll just have a link. So if you made it a public event, they'll just have a link they can click on to view it. And again, because of Teams, you've got that automatic transcription, all of the subtitles that you chose in the languages. So we just had English on for this one. You can download those transcripts here as well. Just to show you a little bit of what the Q&A report looks like. So as I mentioned, this is where you can see who's asked a question, who's responded, whether they're anonymous or if they've put their name forward. So just to give you an idea of what it looks like when you download the Q&A report. And just to finish on, I've got these links that are really useful. I really recommend reading as much of these as possible. They're only very short kind of videos and text passages before you actually go to sign up to a live event. There is another link I'll add in here because we actually have a live event assistance service within Microsoft. So if you are planning, especially your first live event, or if you know you're planning a large live event going forward, they will just help you make sure your bandwidth, your setup, and even give you hand holding on the actual day that you go live. So it's just a form that you fill in. You say when you think your live event's going to be, what kind of help you need, and that's a team specially set up in Microsoft just to help with live events. So that was an introduction to live events. I know we're a little short on time, but I'm going to go to questions now. So bear with me 1 second just while I jump to the question panel view. There we go. Had a question from someone who's asked, can you have more than one producer? So yes, you can have more than one producer. Let me just jump to show you when setting up that. There we go. So if I'm setting up, so for example, this was the training one that we set up, what I can do is come to edit, for example. I could make Megan a producer here. All I need to do is come under Megan's name and select producer as an option and click update. And that would make Megan a producer too. So it's often a good idea to have more than one producer, just in case someone's internet goes down, laptop breaks, there's someone else that can take the reins and take over on the live event. And as you saw there, you can update it at a later time. You don't have to put all your producers and presenters in there when you're creating the event for the first time. So I've just got a little caveat to add as well, because we've had a lot of questions in around Microsoft Stream and the kind of data locations and those kinds of questions. So as long as your team's tenant is in the UK and being hosted in the UK, which I think the vast majority of forces are now, everything is stored on UK data centres. However, I know there is some work happening with the NEP just around navigating the information types that can go into Stream. So at the minute, do just keep it to official data, including official sensitive data, as you are doing with the rest of Office 365. So we just want to put a warning out there just to make sure that Stream shouldn't really be used for storing information where a chain of custody is required for evidential purposes. We're still exploring if it's suitable for that. So do try and hold free on doing that for the moment. So I'll just go back to questions now. Are there any considerations, limitations around inviting people from outside our organisation? So I think the first thing to consider is what's the content going to be? Is it something that's just very vague? Is it a teaching webinar with a school, for example, where you're happy for the content to be joined by anyone? You do just need to be aware that that link that's sent out, if you do choose to do a public webinar, could potentially be forwarded on to anyone. So just bear in mind what content you want to put in that webinar and whether you're happy with it to be available to anyone external to the force. I think if you're running, say, an internal wide live event, but you're just inviting an external presenter, that holds less of a risk, as it'll just be whoever you've invited as a presenter will see the content of that webinar, and they won't be able to necessarily get the recording of it because it will be hosted on your internal stream. So I think that requires a lot less risk if you're just inviting someone external in to be a presenter. But I think it's just making sure, if you do choose to make an event public, what would you be happy sharing that content with people outside the force? So next question we've got is, can attendees unmute themselves? So live events works just like a broadcast. So the only thing, attendees can only use the Q&A panels. They can't unmute themselves and speak as you would do in an actual Teams meeting. So live events, just think of like a TV broadcast basically. So attendees can't unmute themselves. If you're a presenter, you can unmute yourself. So if I clicked the let me just share my screen to show you. So if I clicked the mute all, then here we go. In here, then if I was a presenter, I could come in and mute myself, but not as an attendee. Brilliant. Yes, so just had a question come through, viewing on a mobile phone today. So Struan does collate a list of all these weekly lunchtime webinars that we do and pops them on YouTube to make them easily available post this session. I'll also share this slide deck, which has little video clippings on how to do each bit and what views you have a presenter. If you turn the volume up on that as well, there's a walkthrough for each of the videos too. Just a question on what the limit is for attendees. Really good question. So we've raised this in recent times. So it is very, very large at the minute. I believe off the top of my head, it is 10,000, but it has been scoped out larger to deal with COVID-19. I know we've had some very large events recently. So I will just confirm the actual limits that we have set at the minute, but it is at least 10,000.